Welcome to the TSG Multimedia podcast for August of 2018. We're sponsored in part by Podomatic. Thanks, Podomatic. I appreciate that. Hello. I am coming off the busiest month I've had so far this year. I didn't have a lot of plans when I talked to you on the last podcast, but then things came up and got planned after that, making July extremely busy. The channel's approaching 20,000 subscribers very quickly, and I expect that by this time next month, we'll be well over 20,000. That means a lot of August is going to be spent setting up the Patreon page. I'm looking forward to seeing how that works out. I'm sure, though, with the best viewers on YouTube, that's you, it'll be a big success. Anyway, let me give you an idea of how busy this past month has been. On July 5th, I went to Murph's place to discuss JMRI for the Model Railroading 101 episode that came out last weekend. He showed me some cool features of Panel Pro. Thanks for your help, Murph. I'm really grateful for your generosity and friendship. On July 6th, that was a Friday, and I went to the DCC lunch with Dave Adams again. This time I met and talked to Mark Gurries, another one of the original JMRI guys. It's always a surprise who I'll end up meeting at the DCC lunch, but never a disappointment. Dave was also nice enough to give me back a copy of Jim Vale's layout tour that I reproduced on Blu-ray for him, but he created a cover and put it in a case. Thanks, Dave. Also on July 6th, I received a mystery box from ExactRail, and I ended up publishing the first ever official N-Scale Friday program. This is something I'll be doing when I have a product or a project I think is too cool not to share. I hope you like it, and I have to thank Backroads Bob for the name, since he's the one who always talked about N-Scale Friday. July 7th brought a trip to Santa Cruz, what Bay Area people call over the hill, for an open house at the Fern Creek and Western Garden Railroad. This was an all-day event because they put on an after party with a barbecue. I helped out the best I could, running a train for most of the open house, with only a few near misses. But I also got to see a lot of people I already know, and also got to meet a whole bunch of people I know through social media, but hadn't actually met in person yet. In addition to all this, Trevor wanted to show off all the new stuff on the layout. So let's take a look.
I'm so glad I don't have to wear a name badge. I hate it.
Where's your baggage badge?
I forgot it. I don't know, can only pull about 4 cars.
Okay.
Log cars like this, it's fine, but like the heavier AMS stuff, no, can't pull very much.
You guys are both superstars of layout tours.
Always.
All right, so we're here with Trevor Park at the Fern Creek in Western. As you've been seeing, they had an open house today, and it's wound down now pretty well.
Yes.
And as usual, we come out here maybe once a year, twice a year, and there's always something new. So Trevor's going to show us around, show some of the new stuff. So let's take a look.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was a great open house. We had quite a few people here. I'd say probably 200 people maybe or so, something like that. And then it's been about a year since the last time that we've kind of taken a look around the layout. So let's go and take a look at some of the new stuff. We'll start back here. So we added this new track in the back here. At one time, there were just 2 tracks here in Ericksville, but we added this 3rd track in the back, and what that allows us to do is we actually have a passing siding now. So we can come in on track 4 all the way through this track, and we can also go over onto the station track. And then that also allows us to, when we're running a train during the open house, we can use the track that the number 3 in the passenger train is sitting on here as a yard lead, and then keep the trains running on the main.
That's the train I was running today.
Yeah, he was running that, and he did quite a good job of it. I only saw him derail like once.
I think I derailed twice, but I did almost run into head-on collision with you down there, but that I'm sure was your fault.
Yeah, no, it was Paul's fault. And then, so that allows us to use that track as a yard lead, and then we can keep the other trains on tracks 1 and 4, or I guess the 1 and 3 in this case, because comes off track 4. But anyway, also in the town here, we've been developing the town of Ericksville. I've been building a lot of buildings for it, and a lot of them aren't completed yet, but the first one that I did complete was this orange building here. This is an SG Models kit. It's called Sam's Shoe Shop. The sign fell off, unfortunately, right before the open house, but it's a very nice building. It's a plywood construction. And the way they do it, it's very nice. They have a modular system that allows you to cut the windows out very easily without having to drill a hole to stick the saw into. And that building went pretty easy to go together. And so hopefully we should have a lot more of those buildings in town here. And then eventually we can start developing the industry in Ericksville. So we add this crossover here at the other end of the Ericksville yard that allows us to get off of the branch from the log line and over onto track 3 in the yard. This is really nice because the way it used to work is you'd had a switch here off of track 2, and that went over to track 3, but the problem was then you were taking cars through 2 S-turns as you went into the siding, and things constantly derailed on it, and then there was really no way to get from that log branch or from the new staging yard we put inside onto any of the tracks in the yard except the main line. So this allows us to get onto the yard track and gives us actually a much longer and easier runaround. One of the major issues in running this railroad is that the cars cannot stay out during the winter, and we actually really don't like to leave them out during the summer because they're fairly nice cars, and we don't want them to get faded by the sun or get accidentally watered as we're watering the plants. So we decided to build a yard indoors. Now the way this works is that we store all the trains in here made up, which is really nice. You don't have to pick cars up off the track and move them inside and outside constantly. You can just take your consist out here, and we drop these 2 pieces of track in, and that connects us with the very bottom end of the log branch, which takes us into the yard at Ericksville. And then we can just put an engine on right here indoors, couple the train up, and then take it out. It's very, very nice, and we actually end up running the railroad a lot more as a result. When we aren't having open houses, because it's really easy to just put a train on the track so you aren't having to lift cars in and out of the garage. So one of the major changes we made is actually at what was once Camp 2. If you remember during the filming of the Fern Creek and Western layout tour, when we did that layout tour back in 2015, that was a while ago now, this was actually a log camp. There was just 2 sidings here, and then the passing siding itself and the main. But we've actually redeveloped this into the town of Nolensburg, named after Paul, who operates and works over here a lot. And Nolensburg is actually going to be home to a small tannery, which is where that kind of adobe building is now. That's not the final building that's going to go there. I'm actually scratch building a building at the present time to go there. And then this siding over here, kind of towards the end of Nolensburg, is actually going to be a pulpwood loading area. So we should have some fun switching to do up here. It kind of makes it a little more of a town instead of just a log camp because we now have a place for log camps, which we'll see a lot later in the video. And but now this is a nice little town at the summit of the hill, so this is now Nolensburg instead of Camp 2. So we also raised the bridges here, the twin bridges at Parkston. They were about 1.5 to 2 inches lower at the beginning of this season. And this area here in between the two bridges was a real problem area. The rocks were much lower, and the ballast constantly slipped away from the track, and the track would be hanging in the air. So we ripped it all out. And the other thing was that these bridge abutments would always fall down. So we actually pounded pipes into the ground and clamped the bridge abutments to the pipes underground so they won't tip over, and the bridges are a lot more stable. And then we actually put a lot larger rocks in this area and really filled it in, got the landscaping going here because we could never get anything to grow here because the gophers would always get in there and tear up the plants. And so we put gopher netting down under it. And now the plants are finally starting to fill in, and it's actually starting to look like a really nice little area between the two bridges. So I'm really happy with how that turned out.
I also noticed one of the first things when I came today is how much more greenery there is and foliage in the railroad. There are plants everywhere that weren't there before. It's very nice.
We actually moved the sawmill to the other side of the river here, and it was originally it started on the side of the pond where the station is, over there in Parkston, and then it moved over to this side of the pond, but on the side that John and I are standing on of the river. The river once ran through where the lumber loading building is, and where the flat car is sitting, and then we actually routed the river around it. So our major expansion that we did this year was we actually finished the log branch, at least in terms of track. It originally ended right here at the switch, and it was just enough to run around the train, but now we actually have a switchback that gains us elevation. We have a tail track that goes down there. Train passes the switch here, and then we back up the switchback all the way up the hill to the next tail track, and then we can come forward again and come to the upper log camp. So we actually have not only the lower log camp now, but the upper log camp, and a whole lot of switching and operations for the narrow gauge geared locomotives to do on this line, and it is quite impressive to watch the Shays climb the switchback. They actually work pretty hard going up the switchback, and it's really fun to just be able to go out here and kind of run a little narrow gauge logging branch. It's a whole lot of fun, and this has been a really fun expansion to work on, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. We got a lot packed into a very small area. And we actually put in quite a bit of landscaping on the track coming up the hill to the log branch in the front yard, going down the side yard here. Got lots of plants growing, rocks placed in the ground, and got the track all covered in dirt, so it actually looks like it's climbing a hill now instead of just planks of wood. And on the equipment side of things, we've actually added this engine. We've had it for a really long time, and it's our #1 because it was actually the first engine to ever run on this railroad. But I completely redid it, brand new paint job, put brand new details on it, took it totally apart, cleaned the engine up. I had a weathering job on it that was just a little too heavy, so we decided to clean it up, repaint it, and then it got lettered for the railroad, and it is now a really nice looking engine, and hopefully soon I'm going to kind of put some weathering back on it, make it dirtied up a little bit, and it should be a nice engine for using on the log branch. I really wanted to rebuild it so we could use it on the log branch, and it's proving to be a really good engine for that. I actually rebuilt this Delton 1 to 22.5 boxcar into a nice small 1 to 20.3 narrow gauge boxcar. Weathered it, put our logo on it, re-detailed it, put full brake rigging underneath it, and now it actually is a really nice looking narrow gauge car, just a model of a much smaller prototype than the larger AMS and Bachmann Spectrum boxcars we run around that you see on most of the videos. So overall, it was a really great open house. We had a lot of people show up. We've done a lot of new things to the railroad, and overall, I thought the railroad ran really great. I only saw a few derailments, and most of them were just issues with people running switches and all that sort of thing. And the log branch finally got broken in a little bit, which was really nice to see. And I'm overall really happy with how things went. And now we get to do the fun part of the evening, which is we're going to go party. All my friends are coming, and we're going to enjoy some barbecue and run some trains, so that should be fun. So glad you guys made it out again, John, and till next time. Here, cut to a shot of Paul. It's his fault.
He even looks guilty.
I just had a big cookie.
Is there a
Good.
joke in this?
Nope.
On July 8th, I worked with Jack Burgess on the Ops Session video that was filmed back in March. I'll talk more about that later. We also completed the production phase of another video about the restoration of Yosemite Valley Observation Car number 330 that I talked about last month. There's a lot of really neat Yosemite Valley related stuff in the works right now. On July 14th, I was invited by Ken Patterson to be a guest on his 1-year anniversary episode of his weekly podcast. It was an honor to be invited for a special episode like that. As usual, it was a great discussion with a bunch of modeler guys about really all kinds of things. I always enjoy being a guest on the What's Neat This Week podcast. And I said it before and I'll say it again. I don't know where Ken finds the energy to stay so positive and do so much to promote the hobby. He works as hard as I do at it, maybe even harder. Thanks again, Ken. It was an honor to be there. On July 15th, I recorded with John Wiley for last week's Model Railroading 101 episode. If you watched it, you'll recall that John talked to us about Decoder Pro, and he did a great job too. Really appreciate the help, John, and I'm glad that I know people who are willing to share their knowledge with me and with the audience here on YouTube. I think it really underscores the importance of the social aspect of the hobby. You can learn a whole lot more from people if you branch out and actually talk to them. On July 18th, I had Alvin Ho of Water Vehicles and Details over to show off some of his models for N-Scale Friday programs. I met Alvin this year at an op session and since found out that he's not only a very talented N-scaler, but he also has a Shapeways store, produces etched metal signal towers, and he's written several articles that were published in Railroad Model Craftsman. The stuff he shared with me was the material for the last 2 episodes of N-Scale Friday, and I suspect that he'll have other stuff to show off in the future. By the way, I'd love to hear from you about N-Scale Friday. Put a comment below to let me know if you like it and what you think I can do to make it better. And before I move on to another topic, I want to mention it's going to be more than just showing you stuff that you can buy. I intend to show off all things N-Scale, if people like it enough. So if a friend has an unusual model or is working on a project in N-Scale, that's the kind of thing I'll be looking for to show you on N-Scale Friday. July 19th was very busy. I started my day off talking to Ron Perry for the interview I'll share with you a little later. Then I traveled to Hollister to film a how-to video about putting DCC and sound into a garden scale 2-truck Shay with my friends Trevor and Kevin. This was a highlight for the month for me because I love these guys. Every time I get together with either of them, it's a lot of laughs and a great time. So imagine having them in the same place at the same time. Add Kevin's family to the mix and you can imagine the fun we had. This production session, it had been in the plan for a long time, a couple of months, and it was starting to look like it might not even happen. So I have to say thanks for making it happen, guys. And a special thanks to the San Benito Southern track foreman, Curtis, and Ellen as well, who both put on a really great barbecue for us after a long, hard day of working on that model in between the jokes. On July 22nd, I volunteered at the SBHRS to pressure wash the building. Originally, the plan was to wash just one small part of the building, but it turned out that someone else had already completed that task during the week. So instead, we washed the rest of the building instead of just that one end. It was a fair amount of work, but the building really did need it. The next day, on the 23rd, I returned to the SBHRS for July's live webcast. This time I was joined by not only John Wiley, but also we were joined by our friend Robin Gilstrom. He's been active with the SBHRS for over 30 years. We talked about trains, models, our trip to Salt Lake City. Robin showed off a brass McKean car project that he has in the works, and John talked a bit about the train order signal in the layout room that's been preserved and maintained by the group. He even showed us how it works. We also discovered that live webcasts include an option for people to make donations to support the channel. That was fun. On July 24th, I went to Ray Turner's Mystic Mountain Garden Railroad to film for a layout tour. Ray was also nice enough to take the time and explain how he uses JMRI to help organize his op sessions for the Model Railroading 101 program that came out last week. Huge thanks, Ray, for sharing your knowledge and your time with us. The layout tour is scheduled for September, and it's going to be a good one. Ray's layout is very large, and like I said a minute ago, he does full ops sessions on it. That's not something you see every day, ops on a garden railroad layout. I had some so-called time off planned for the following week, as I had family visiting from out of state. I still went about editing, scheduling, and other tasks to help the channel stay running though. And on July 25th, this is pretty cool, Channel 2 finally eclipsed 1,000 subscribers. Thank you, everyone, for helping to make this happen. I hope that some of the non-train related content on that channel will help it grow into a popular place for people to catch interesting programs about other stuff, including how-tos, life hacks, nature videos, product reviews, occasional game reviews, day trip videos. It's a pretty eclectic mix on there. Speaking of day trip videos, the next installment of Bay Area Day Trips came out today. This one is about Uvis Canyon County Park in Morgan Hill. I invite you to take a look and see if you like it. I learned a lot producing this series for Channel 2 and hope that the series will lead to more interest on that channel. Last month I had Ken Patterson on for an unannounced interview segment, and people really liked it. I mentioned a minute ago that I talked to another friend this month, Ron Perry, and I've known Ron for a few years now. He does some really impressive modeling with wood kits and kit bashing. Let's get him on here and talk about it. All right, so I've got Ron Perry dialed up on Skype here. Let's go to Ron. So Ron, thanks a lot for joining me here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, John.
Yeah, it's really great. Little backstory here. We've known each other for a few years now. We were kind of dabbling with doing videos about games a while back, and it was a lot of fun, actually. If you look for it, you can probably still find, we had a 45-minute interview or something that you broadcast one day.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we were going to start a gaming podcast. I don't know why that was. I'm afflicted by this gaming thing.
It's an escape from the modeling, maybe?
Well, I think all these different facets are escape from real life.
Right, exactly.
So healthy, some not.
Right? So Ron was nice enough to record the intro on the podcast last month, and just in case you don't know, Ron's a custom model builder, and he also runs the Modelers Guild, which is a page on Facebook, right?
Yep.
So we're going to talk for a few minutes here on the podcast, since people seem to like the interview idea. So I'll ask some questions, and let's just have fun with it, right? So Ron, I guess one of the easiest questions would be, when did you start building models? How long ago? Like, how old were you?
It was in 2008. I started building my first model, full steam ahead, the farmer's market.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a quick succession of about 4 Craftsman kits I built late 2008.
Okay. Were those plastic then, or?
No, I started with wood, surprisingly enough, and I've stuck with it ever since.
Nice. What do you enjoy most about building models?
Well, I like digging into a project that, like I like to copy pictures. I like to capture a scene as well as I can with materials that have nothing to do with, the subject I'm working with, and it's just a thrill for me to, a healthy thrill, which is something new for my life.
Something that I've noticed, watching you work, because I have watched some of your videos here and there when I have a chance to, is that you seem to really get into a zone with it, where you're just into the model. And I know that from experience, because this happens with me when I do video work, and especially when I'm editing something, I really just get into it, where any distraction could be a huge thing to me. And I'm so focused that time passes and I don't even know how long I've been doing it at some point. Does that seem to happen for you? I mean, it looks like it just watching from the outside.
Yeah, and actually I have live streamed long enough that people have come into the room and I've had these headphones on and I'm in my own world and I get startled to the point of, you know, maybe sounding angry, you know, but it's like, it's like I'm getting pulled out from underwater or something like that, you know, coming out into the air. It's like,
Yeah, so the zone is real, isn't it?
oh, for sure. It's totally encapsulating.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that was a word, but yeah, I gave that to you, John.
No, that is a word, and I know what you mean. So you're in a bubble, basically. You're in your own world. So
And as an example, here's a model that I recently did. Showcase Miniatures.
oh right, yeah, we showed this one a little bit on your intro.
Yeah. Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I got this one I just finished right now. I brought out some show and tells.
Yeah. Oh, this is nice.
Yeah, this is a company that I've never heard of before, Right on Track Models, and
Okay.
I thought it was a really fun and easy to build kit. So yeah.
That's really cool. So I had a question, because you mentioned this on your intro, and we talked about it very briefly here a minute ago. What are some of the challenges with wood models that maybe plastic modelers don't have to deal with?
There's a point in wood where you can put too much moisture on it. So there's a little bit of time you have to put pieces aside, and it becomes an assembly process where you're building different parts of the kit all in one part, you know, and that's not something that you start off doing, but that's what I do now, and I find it totally enjoyable. And so plastic, I feel like, you know, I would start on each piece and just finish it before I move to the next one. Where wood, it's just like a spread of the whole kit.
So it's more of there's not as much dry time maybe for plastic or something like that?
Yeah, like, well, the drying is a little bit more simplistic because there's no embedding into the plastic, where like some woods like balsa will actively soak in the water, and it will disform on you, you know, unless you take proper steps of bracing and stuff like that. So
Right. Yeah, actually wood swells with moisture, right?
yeah, and this is a point that I'd like to bring up, is that a historical discussion was always, should I brace my wood? Which is a subject that has come full circle to, so back in the solvent days, the flow quill days, you could get away with not bracing balsa and these woods that will soak up the stuff. You could get away with it. But now we have water-based paints. So that argument has kind of, has gone away. It's changed over time.
Right.
So now it's a water-based paint palette. So you really do need to brace this wood now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that probably watching one of the videos, people can understand better what you're doing in terms of bracing and all that. Because you talk about that on the videos, right? I think I've seen you explaining why you're doing certain things as you do it, which I think is really instructional for people. I like that a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot, like, I'll admit, there's a lot of dead time in my videos because I'm doing a project that takes 50 hours to do. Right? So I'm not doing all 50 hours on camera, but, you know, each video I want to at least share at least 5 great tips, you know what I mean? So I'll take historical examples into a kit to further describe stuff, and you know, there's live chat going on at the same time, so it's a Q&A kind of back and forth.
Sure. Now that brings me to the next question, because I've seen, normally you have on a shirt that says Modelers Guild, right? That has the logo, which is a cool logo, by the way. Why don't you talk a little bit about Modelers Guild? What is it, and how do people get involved?
The Modelers Guild started out as a blog, turned into a website, thought it was an e-magazine for a while, got hacked about 4 times.
Oh, you're kidding.
And now, while all that happened on the outside, in Facebook it constantly grew as a group. right? So outside of Facebook, the Modelers Guild was something, and it was kind of like, you know, that bipolar stepchild, and it just went all over the place. But you know, in Facebook, it's now an 8,000 plus member group, and it is known for being a structure or scenery oriented model railroad group. Like we accept models of all kinds. We're not, you know, large scale models. You know, there's lots of people doing these scenes in New York City with like the dumpsters and garbage underneath. It's like they're actually making crushed cans. You know, it's remarkable. So the Modelers Guild group is basically a group that shares top-notch modeling. We don't we totally accept whoever comes in, but you know, a lot of great modelers are part of the group. And recently we started a little mentorship program there, and which is a kind of new thing that Facebook put out. Like Facebook put out this mentorship program for groups like ours, and we totally embraced it, and we have like 25 or 30 high quality mentors that we join up for people, and it's like a 10-week program. And
well, that sounds pretty cool. That sounds like something that I might even want to get involved with when I start trying to build stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because and you know, I have noticed, because I joined Modelers Guild because of what I do. You know, I don't consider myself a modeler yet, really. I mean, I've built models when I was a kid and so forth, but I'm not nothing like what you do. We'll put it that way. Although I could see really getting into that, because the amount of detail and all that you go to, and you know, weathering one board at a time on a structure or something, or on a deck. I remember one of the first things I ever saw you build was some kind of a seaside scene. It was like a dock or something. And I remember just looking at that going, wow, he is getting one plank at a time on this dock side. It was so intense, and I was just like, this is like really making it look realistic. Do you know what I mean? So that was one of the things that originally when I contacted you, was because I saw you doing that, and it's like, this guy is really, you know, really being detailed on this stuff, and it was just really impressive to watch. So, but maybe I'll look up that Modelers, what did you call it, a mentorship?
Yeah, Modelers Guild mentorship program. It should be one of the links on the side if you're a member. I can't, I see it at times, I always lose it. It's a new program, and Facebook has linked it, and they take care of the, you know, the tech side, and we take care of the mentors.
Yeah, that's really great. And I have noticed on Modelers Guild, a lot of very skilled models or modelers come up. I see these pictures, and you do a double take, you know, oh, wait a minute, that's real, right? Oh, no, it's not. It's, and you look and you're like, okay, so now you can tell. So
yeah, I think also you'll notice that there are a lot of international modelers out there, and a lot of them are on Modelers Guild. Well, they're also on another group called Weathered Models, and I'd like to give them a shout out, because holy smokes, they don't do model railroad based stuff. They're kind of like a military based kind of thing, and holy smokes. But we've got international modelers from Indonesia, all over Hong Kong, Australia, Iraq, Turkey, all over the world. It's actually a lot of fun seeing, you know, what other people are doing, and I don't know.
You know, it's interesting, and I just thought of something as you were talking about that. It seems to me that modeling can be thought of a lot like how people think of music. It's one of these things, or maybe sports. It's one of these things that can transcend borders and bring people together in ways that otherwise it wouldn't happen, right?
Absolutely. I've interviewed a guy in Taiwan, Baghdad, Iraq, and somewhere in Turkey, and two people in Turkey, and all of us use modeling as our way to get away. You know, we're all, you know, breadwinners. You know, we're all bringing bread into the family, And, you know, we all need our time to go and relax, you know, turn the radio on and relax. And, you know, modeling is a healthy way to do that, you know?
Sure. So I got a question. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but I'm curious because you do have the headphones and you're listening to something. So what is your favorite? You're listening to music, right?
Yeah.
So what's your favorite band to listen to when you're doing your modeling?
My favorite song that I always start with is Boomtown Rats, I Hate Mondays. I can listen to anything, though. I sometimes throw the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation radio station, that was a mouthful, and listen to
easy for you to say.
Classical music in the morning, jazz in the afternoon, and, you know, pop at night, you know. I'm open to it all.
So if you listen to heavy metal, do you tend to do the brush strokes a little harder?
I am definitely listening to heavy metal at times.
All right. Well, I got to wrap this up here, but I really enjoy the conversation. I'm really thinking about making these interview things into their own show. We were talking about this off camera, but I want to share this with the viewers. I'm thinking about making this interview thing into its own thing, like a 30 or 45-minute show. And of course, it'll depend mostly on who's willing to do it. But I'm going to ask the viewers, if you think you would like that, put a message in the comment section below. And I want to ask you, Ron, one last thing before we go, which is, where can people, or what can they do to see your videos, and how can they support what you're doing? Because I think that's also very important.
Thank you very much. I can be found at Just Another Scale Modeler on YouTube. And to support me is patreon.com/Ron Perry, where I've got 12 or 13 supporters there, and you could be one of them. All
right, cool. So everybody, that's Ron Perry from Canada, all the way from, we're an international show, man. All right, thanks so much, Ron, for hanging with me for a minute here, and we'll talk to you soon, all right?
Thanks for having me, John.
All right, so let's take a look at the viewer poll results from last month. What kind of rewards would you like is the question for the Patreon page. Merchandise and swag ended up with 53%, exclusive content got 7%, special guest opportunity ended up with 10%, discounts got 12%, and other ended up with 15% of the vote. I just want to clarify something real quick here. This question was not an either-or proposition necessarily, but rather just an attempt to figure out what people value more out of the options that I came up with. 15% of the respondents answered other, but no one really offered ideas for what other meant to them. This month, if you have an idea about what rewards you would find rewarding for supporting my efforts on Patreon, please just type the idea that you have in the comment section below. Thanks for your feedback too. It'll help me offer what you value so that you get something that you want in return for your support. I mean, other than just being able to watch good videos. Let's take a look at some of the events that are happening in August. On Saturday, August 11th, the Niles Canyon Railway is offering speeder rides at 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, and 3. Apparently, they're taking the noon hour off for lunch. The speeder rides are $25 per ticket, and they're going to have a velocipede and a handcar, in case you want to try your hand at that. Check out the details at ncry.org when you have a chance. On Saturday, August 18th, the Billy Jones Wildcat Railroad of Los Gatos is holding their end-of-summer night ride and pasta dinner event. You can ride the train and the carousel for $6 or get unlimited rides for $18. The dinner is $10 per plate. You can get more information about this event at bjwrr.org. I mentioned last month about an ongoing exhibit called Shake, Rattle, and Roll being held at the San Diego Model Railroad Museum. It's about modern-day graffiti being put on scale models, and it features models from artists all across North America. It runs all the way up through November 16th. As always, I encourage you to seek out your local organizations, clubs, historical societies, preservation groups, and heritage railroads for events they're holding in your area. These groups are almost always run as nonprofits, strictly by volunteers, and could use your support to help fund their operations. The preservation work they do is vital to maintaining the historic identity of the areas that they exist in. And now for some of the things I have going on in August. This month, we're going to the Nevada Northern Railroad with Mike Ninneman and Gary Perazzo. Mike's going to be an engineer for a day there, and I'm thinking this might be an opportunity to film for, don't look now, another Chasing Trains episode. We'll see how that develops. No promises right now. I have plans to go with some SBHRS friends out to the California State Railroad Museum at some point too. Then on August 18th, the Bay Area Garden Railroad Society is having an open house day for the South County District. So I plan to check that out with some friends. I'm sure that plenty of other things will come up, just like they did in July, and I seem to have a really hard time saying no to these things, probably because they're always great subjects for the content I bring to the channel here, and I figure you'll want to see them too. Here are the upcoming programs for August. Next Saturday, that's August 11th, this month's layout tour, the Alameda County Central Railroad Society's HO scale layout tour. Last month, we looked at the O scale layout at the ACCRS. This month, we look at the HO scale side. It's a good one. On August 18th at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, it's a video about the Southern Pacific RDC SP10. You may recall I visited the Bud Car with some friends a couple months ago. This is the video I made about that experience. You'll find out what's being done to not only restore this historic piece of equipment to static display, but also get to hear some stories from people who worked on the car when it was in service, and learn about plans for the Southern Pacific Railroad History Center that's in the process of being established. You definitely don't want to miss this program because you won't see this stuff anywhere else. On the Sunday of that same weekend, so August 19th, I'll be doing another live webcast. For the past 3 months, a live webcast has come out on the third Sunday, so I figured to do it again. It seems like a regular thing now. So please join me for an impromptu discussion about stuff that's going on and live interaction, the kind you can only get talking real time to someone. As long as these webcasts continue to be popular, I'll continue to do them, so do your best to show up at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, Sunday, August 19th. I'm seriously considering changing the day of the week that the live webcasts are held on. More about that in a minute. On August 25th, the next episode of Model Railroading with Jack Burgess comes out. This month, we take a look at operations on Jack's Yosemite Valley Railroad. This layout is rarely operated on, and in this video, you get to observe an ops session and learn about some of the things Jack does to keep the operators challenged. This is something you will never see anywhere else, so don't miss it. So, I mentioned a minute ago about possibly changing the day of the week for live webcasts. This month's poll is related to that. I noticed one Friday when I came on completely unannounced, as in no prior notice at all, there were as many viewers as we get when I announce a live webcast weeks ahead of the scheduled date and time, but on a Sunday. So they got me thinking, maybe Sundays at 10 a.m. just aren't good for everyone who watches the channel. So I'd like to know, out of the following options, which day would make it easiest for you to participate in a live webcast. Now, I only have 5 options here. It's a limitation of YouTube's poll, so bear with me. The answers are Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and of course, other. If you choose other this time, please let me know specifically which day works best for you. I'm trying to be as inclusive as possible, so this is really important to me. That's about all I have for you this time. Thanks so much for helping me get Channel 2 to 1,000 subscribers. Please share this channel with your friends, and come to think of it, Channel 2 also if you like it. And thanks so much for your continued support. I'll see you next time.